All right, guys, probably like 2 more minutes and we'll get started. Thank you so much for everyone who's waiting. Just want to make sure that everyone who want to join us, they can join us. Video and slides, by the way, will be still available for you guys to download. So this will be, I think, broadcasted from my end, from MageCloud, from Nexcess end as well. So you'll be able to get this video and share with your colleagues and teams. All right, it's ready. Probably time to get started. Miguel, if it's all is good, then let's go. First of all, thank you so much for everyone who joined us in real time, and thank you for everyone who will be watching this video afterwards. I know that those days it's a hard time for all of our businesses, and I really want to make sure that we are trying to provide you as best information as possible. Those days with the coronavirus and businesses having some troubles, I think migrating from the Magento 1.9 probably would be tough for a lot of customers. From my side, as a CEO of the MageCloud agency, we're working with quite a bit of Magento 1 customers who is proudly hosted on Nexcess. So we decided to invite Nexcess for our webinar to share about the strategy, how they're going to protect, etc., etc. So I wanna welcome our guest today, Miguel Balpardo, who is a senior Magento developer. He's helping out for a lot of tickets. Thank you so much, Miguel, for that. So from time to time, we're getting cross references when we have some sort of questions, etc. So he's always a good advisor. So I will probably go ahead and ask him to share the slides and share a little bit more with all of us. What's the Nexcess doing? What's the Safe Harbor? And then we can take it from there.
Hey guys, so first of all, thanks a lot for being here today. What I'm gonna be doing now is a quick demo for Safe Harbor and some of the slides we have. Let me share my screen real quick. It'll be a minute. I'm almost there. Okay, there we go. You all can see my screen now.
Yeah, it's all good. Thank you.
Yeah. So what I'm going to be showing today is one of the add-ons. I'm not entirely sure what are you seeing. Give me one more moment. Give me one more second. Okay, there we go. You should be seeing my entire screen now. There we go. Okay, so basically one of the things we created given the end of life of Magento 1 after June 2020 was an add-on to all of our Magento plans. Basically, we know people have 3 different issues. They have security issues, they have malware problems, and they don't know if their site is working or not. So that's why we focus ourselves in these 3 different things. That's why we created a WAF, the malware. I'm going to be showcasing that in a minute, but it's probably the most complete solution out there. And basically what we wanted to do, and this is really important to note, is Safe Harbor is just an add-on to any existing plan, but it doesn't have to be taken as an extension for the Magento 2 life as in forever. We are trying to accommodate customers and stores who are not ready yet to migrate to any other alternative, but this is not a way to gain technical depth or try to stay Magento 1 forever. That's not what we are telling people. That's not what we want from our customers. We're just trying to accommodate our store owners so they just have a little more time to be able to migrate and don't do this without the time they need. Basically, today there are hundreds of thousands of Magento stores owners who don't know what an end-of-life situation means, haven't kept up with Magento and PHP upgrades. This point is really important, mostly because what we are seeing is these old stores, when Magento 1 started, most of these stores were really small stores, maybe selling 10 or maybe up to 100 SKUs. And that's a really small store, like running some real small operations. And basically, most of these people, they don't get to realize, or they are not really into Magento or like the ecosystem, just like we are. So these are just regular people selling online, and they don't really understand they need to keep their store up to date. They don't really understand what a PHP version is. So we are trying to focus mostly on these small and medium store owners, and that's why we are trying to understand what the situation means for them. Now, we also found a different group that's not ready to invest in an upgrade Magento 2 or any other software platform. This happens a lot. Most of these people, they're not making millions online. They're just getting small money and they don't have the resources to migrate. And resources doesn't only mean money. That might also mean, I don't know, having the resources, having the understanding, or having a dev team working with them to try to migrate them to the different platforms. Now, we also found people need time to find a partner to help them navigate the options. So we are in a really strange time. And I know nobody wants to migrate these days, mostly because they are afraid they are going to be losing that revenue they need to live. And that's why we wanted to create a solution for them so they can actually understand what they are doing, and not only pushing them to migrate to a different solution, you know? Sorry. So that's why I wanted to introduce to Nexcess Safe Harbor. We are the expert in the Magento hosting ecosystem. We've been here forever, and it's not like you have to trust us, and it's not like you have to take my word to see what's going on in the future. We already did this. We are already supporting and helping maintain really all Magento versions. We still host the majority of Magento 1 customers worldwide, and that means we've seen it all. We've seen everything. We've seen most of these stores that are outdated. We've seen the issues people is having, and that's why we are trying to ensure your Magento 1 stores are protected long past June 2020. Now, who is our safe harbor for? We are currently focused on merchants, as I told you. This is also a developer-focused solution, but there are things we are trying to facilitate to these merchants. So I'm going to be showing that in a minute, but keep in mind, most of these stores, they don't have developers, they don't have agencies, and the ones that have that, they don't want to pay for an ongoing support after June 2020. So right now we are focusing ourselves on merchants who don't have a relationship with any agency partner, haven't upgraded to even the latest version of Magento, do not have internal technical staff to manage updates, and are not ready to expense a migration to Magento 2 or to any other hosting platform. Keep this in mind because I'm going to be showing you things, and some of you are developers probably, so you'll be thinking something like, hey, but this is basically fixing the issues we see with Magento 1, and that's correct. So bear with me for a moment. Now, what's included in our Safe Harbor add-on plan? Now, as I told you already, this is an add-on to any existing plan. We are pricing this around 30-35% of the existing value of the current plan you have, and this includes daily malware scans with Turbo for remediation. This is important because we are not only scanning these sites, we are not only scanning your stores for malware, we are also giving you an option to create a support ticket from your portal. And if you find something and you want us to take a look at it, you can submit a ticket directly from there with all the technical details we need to try to remediate this. In change threat protection, we are monitoring user votes and HTTP requests. We know a lot of traffic is fake on the internet. We suspect around 50% of all the incoming traffic we have to our networks is created by bots or robots. And we are trying to limit the amount of damage one of these bots and robots can make. And that's why we created the Change Threat Protection. We're also working on staging environments. This is probably the feature I like the most. This feature is basically a one-click install where you can clone your site, scrap all the scrap all the personal information you have from your customers, from your orders, and that kind of stuff, and basically create a clone of your site in the exact same environment where you can test upgrades. So you don't have to do that in production. You might think, hey, we all know this. We don't test in production. We don't test in live sites, but I'm sorry to tell you this, but a lot of people do that. And we are trying to make that go away as much as we can, because most of these upgrade tries, when they try to upgrade, the sites break, and you don't want your site to be broken when it's live. So that's why we're creating the staging environments. And we are also working with different companies trying to source these Magento 1 patches, and we are trying also to backport them. So it's not like we're only supporting Magento 1.9 or like Magento 1.8 or any of the newer versions. We are trying to support as many merchants as we can, and that includes backporting security patches post end of life. Now, let me show you, I'm gonna do a quick demo so you can see what's going on. What I have here is the OpenMage demo. They are hosting with us. I'm gonna tell you this. We also support OpenMage, and since our systems detect OpenMage as a Magento 1 store, you can actually install Safe Harbor. This account already have Safe Harbor installed. You can basically click here. When you have your own store, it's gonna say add Safe Harbor. It's gonna explain you what it is, and then you're gonna end up here. Now, I already talked to you about this, but every day, every night, we are scanning your entire site, basically to see if there are new files. Now, you might think, what does total file scans see? That means, I'm changing that copy, it means basically no new files with malware have been found. I know it's not extremely clear, but we are still working on that. There's also the possibility to create a ticket from here. We don't have any malware here, but if you start an investigation, you'll be basically starting super investigation where we are gonna be noting the service, the subject, and who's behind this site. So basically, please investigate possible malware on this service. It's an empty message, but what we are trying to do when we find something is for you to be able to select that here, select that file, and send that our way. So we can actually understand the context and we can see what's going on your site. Tree protection. This is what I mentioned a while ago. Basically, we created these 3 services and we enabled that by default to all the Magento 1 stores we have. Basically, we created a web application firewall, or WAF, which blocks requests or known requests that are trying to harm your site. We created a blacklist for IPs. This is mostly for like aggressive crawlers or bots. And it's pretty much the same as the bad bot rate limiting. With these 3 tools, we think we created a really interesting security suite for Magento 1, but we're also open to suggestions. So if you think there's anything else we should be adding, if you think there are more problems that we might be fixing, this is probably the time to let me know, or you can even find me on Twitter, you know where to find me. We also have this IP blacklist in the last 24 hours. There's nothing on this site, mostly because there's nothing to be blocked. We don't have any aggressive crawlers or bots working our way, but I think it's a really neat feature. Now, the feature I like the most is still being developed. This is coming soon. We already have this for Magento 2. This is one of the best features in our cloud, if you ask me, because again, people don't get to realize that if they break their live site, they are gonna stop receiving money. Like, it might sound really basic, but it's not. So keep that in mind when you're trying to update your stores. Don't do that in production. Don't try to do that in your live sites. Try to use this feature. There are many ways to do it, but we are offering this natively with 1 click from our portal. So that's something. And then this is really interesting too. Basically, what we are trying to do here is to read your Magento version. This store is in 1.9.4.1. And these are all the patches available or ported Magento patches we have. So let's say you want to install this patch and this patch. You just select them here and you request an installation. And this is going to create a ticket directed to our patching team in the support team, basically asking us to install the Magento patches with the URL and with a small description. This is pretty useful for us because we get to see the context and we get to understand what you're doing these days and what we are trying to work on. Because most of the time people will ask us to install some patches, but they won't give us a reason and won't give us context. So it's like working blind. Keep that in mind when you submit a ticket here. Keep that in mind when you are working with any other super provider, as we need as many information as you can give us. So that's why we created this in this way, basically to have all the information we need, so we don't have to contact you again and we can just work, you know. Now, there are other things I can show you here if you're ready to migrate or if you need development help. Basically, if you're ready to migrate, we might be able to contact you with some partners. And if you need development help, it's going to be pretty much the same. It's going to go to another department. But yeah, this is the way we found to actually help these Magento 1 stores to keep functioning at least for a couple of more months. Because I don't want everybody to stay in Magento 1. I don't want them using this forever. And if you ask me, most of the companies using Magento 1 should already have a plan to migrate someplace else, because it is not going to last forever. I don't expect people to stay on Magento 1 in like 2 years. I know it might sound impossible, but it's what we're trying to do. We don't feel this is the correct platform for everybody, and we don't feel having people using a really old platform is the best way to go. Mostly because the internet is a really obscure place, and we get to see hacks every day, and we don't want that to happen to our customers, and that's why we created this safe harbor. And back to you, Paul. That's pretty much it for my demo.
Thank you so much. So then let me try to share my screen and try to bring a little bit more value from my end. So guys, just so you know, we'll be answering all of your questions after the session. I will quickly try to bring my personal experience about migrating from Magento 1 to Magento 2, right? So, and let me tell you, definitely with Magento 2, if we as an agency starting like a totally new project, we definitely start with Magento 2. But at the same time, we all know, the business owners knows, the developers know, there are still a bunch of the issues on the Magento repo that is confirmed by Magento. So for all of my businesses clients who makes 1 to 5 million revenue a year, I'm trying to tell the following: hey guys, let's wait maybe till Magento 2 will be a little bit more stable, and Safe Harbor in this case probably like a pretty nice feature to have. They already have Magento 1 website, it's working correctly, and they really like I can tell you, most of my clients, they're afraid about one stuff. They're afraid about losing the traffic and about like getting a negative impact from the migration from one platform to another. So I will be talking a little bit about this. And don't get me wrong, if you will be utilizing not just Magento 2, but any other platforms, all those comments from my end will be quite handy. So the number one question, what to do if you want to migrate. From my end, when we'll be talking to the clients about the migration, the number one stuff with me would be to analyze, hey, how they're getting the traffic right now. And then basically I will go to Google Analytics, I will go to the behavior site content landing pages, and I will try to set up like the pretty like nice period of the time, maybe like 6 months or something like that. And then I will be trying to get the information about which landing pages were used by the customers the most. Why this is important? Because when you're doing migration from one platform to another, basically you want to make sure that specifically those pages that gives you most of the traffic will be migrated correctly. So getting this list, it's a must-have. All right. The next stuff that I'm usually doing is I'm going into the SEM Rush and I'm analyzing my clients, and I'm analyzing how they're pretty much ranking in terms of the organic traffic. So I will definitely do an export of their Excel spreadsheet with the positions, with the pages that rank for the certain keywords, and I will be utilizing this file going forward to match what was our previous position before the migration and then after migration, right? So that's pretty decent and probably clear for everyone. The next one, definitely, before you start migration to the new platform, which could be kind of like at least 6 weeks project, with a big project, it might be even a couple of months. I highly recommend to all of my customers, take a look deeply into your existing, project and see what's the quick wins and what's the must-have stuff that you want to do and you have to do before migration. So for instance, and again, don't get me wrong, I choose probably not as kind of big companies and like not the best in terms of depth things, but eventually this is just to showcase the particular workflow that we are doing. So number one, I would definitely verify that SSL is enabled, right? So if it's not enabled, or maybe there's some stuff and problem with configuration, that can be easily fixed. Even if you don't have to buy the SSL, you can go ahead with, invite the Cloudflare, which will be automatically protecting your website. And then even while you will be doing this, migration, it's already will be protected, right? The next stuff that I'm usually checking, I'm usually checking redirects. So eventually, for example, let's say I will be going into the website, and you can eventually test this by yourself pretty quickly on your personal website. So what I will be doing is, I normally kind of getting one of the links. I'm going to the website called redirectcheck.com. Over here, for instance, I will remove as at the end and going to click like trace. So basically, there's a lot of developers making the mistakes, and it does not really depends on the platform. But eventually, when you starting the new website or migrating a new website, and you want to make sure that it's running correctly on the HTTPS, you want to make sure that all of the previous URLs, like HTTP, www, HTTP without www, will be a 301. It was a one single redirect. Now, as you can see here, number one is 302. Number two, it's like a 2 redirects at a time. So basically we'll have to, like, I had situation when different combinations actually link not to the proper page, but actually to the home page of the site. So that's also kind of happens from time to time, and this is something that eventually supposed to happen. The check that you have to make. Another stuff that I'm always getting into the robots.txt file, I'm checking if there's any important stuff that's protected from Google, like JavaScript and skin, for example, on Magento 1. You should never protect that, because that will be impacting kind of the mobile view for Google, right? So basically, even like it takes you 10 seconds just to, remove this, and that's already will be much more, cleaner, etc. The next stuff that I'm usually checking, it's kind of in robots.txt, what happens sometimes, developers or clients, they're protecting not unnecessary pages. So for instance, like over here, they're protecting from Google, like pagings, right? So if you're on the product listing, there is page 1, page 2, page 3. So eventually they're protecting stuff like that, which is, not correct. I mean, eventually the way how we do it with no index follow. So Google can still get to this page, maybe and follow all the products that's there, right? So make sure you're not making these mistakes. On the Magento 1, I find out there's a bunch of their customers who's not even checking the sitemap. Sitemap's supposed to be updated, on day-by-day basis. And like, for instance, like a lot of customers, they're not even checking. So like last time when the sitemap was generated back in 2016, right? So it's a pretty quick fix, right? But at the same time, this is something that every developer is supposed to check before start migration. And another stuff, like I mentioned, integrating Cloudflare. Why we're using mostly Cloudflare? Because when you're switching from one platform to another, probably you're switching to the new hosting company. The DNS might change like in 24 hours. But eventually what we're doing, we're pointing Cloudflare to the original website. And then when we do a switch, it's almost like instant, right? Plus, as you know, with Cloudflare, all of the static content will be already cached. So even your Magento 1 platform before migration will be much better. So as you can see, even by just simply utilizing Cloudflare, we can get a sort of extra speed. The next stuff that I want to share, like number one, guys, please fix all the issues on your Magento website before the migration. What type of issues I mean? For instance, if you go to Google and type site and then your domain name, you can eventually try to catch some incorrect data. So for instance, I'm checking like stuff like duplicating content, like this one, limit all, right? So eventually this is duplicating content for Google. There's a bunch of the stuff that can be verified, like for example, mode, right? As you can see here, for this instance scenario, even session ID was indexed by Google. So if you will be just migrating to Magento 2, like by default, like as it is, without fixing those, means that Google still might take all of those in place and stay there. So, and I want to make sure for all of my clients when I'm doing migration, it's not just not losing the traffic, but also cleaning up everything and make sure the new website will be perfect for everything, for conversions, for traffic and so on. And other stuff like I'm not going to spend much time, but in URL catalog search, you can also see some content that should not really be there. Search session ID stuff should not be there. Filters as well. So for example, like sometimes like pricing gets in Google Index, like this one, those type of URLs. Like sometimes what happens is like view ID, like products URLs like this, review. So I'm not gonna, like every website is unique. So eventually you have to kind of take a look at your original website to see if it's, I just giving you some list that I'm usually checking. And like, so imagine like you start, and I can tell you, you have to spend maybe 2 business days to fix all stuff that I just mentioned. And that's immediately gives you a very quick return over the investment for your current Magento 1 website while you're working on the M2 or any other platform. Like just so you know, when we doing migrations, we usually utilizing shopping cart migration platform. So to migrate the data, this is something that we are doing like the first thing. I highly recommend you when you install like a new platform, do migration of the data first, because otherwise when you will be installing like a different new extensions, etc., it's better to test right from the beginning, right? So with MageCloud 20, you will get 20% off for all the migrations if you guys want to use that. What else? Like before migration, what's the main question? How to save traffic. So there are a couple of ways to do that. Like number one, and like between Magento 1, Magento 2, ideally you can keep URLs the same. If you are migrating for another platform, and for example, you cannot really stay with the original URL structure, then you can organize the 301 redirect from the previous URLs to the new one. Definitely keep titles and metadata the same. I mean, if your original website, was working just fine and getting a lot of organic traffic, then for sure, then keep that. Otherwise, probably start working with the agency that can help you out a little bit with the proper title and meta description and stuff like that. And definitely, keep H1, and any text on the new pages on your Magento 2 website. So this is must have. All right. So now, then, before you go with Magento 2, there are certain stuff that you have to check. It's very similar to what we just done and went through with Magento 1, like check your robots.txt file, make sure it's correct. Check that sitemap will be generated daily. Check that the redirect will be working correctly. Make sure you will be utilizing CDN. I know Nexcess has its own CDN platform. I mean, honestly, we're using Cloudflare, but again, verify that you're utilizing GTM and Facebook pixels correctly. What I find out a lot of times is like different agencies, they start working with the new clients, and they're putting so many different stuff here in like which gives like unnecessary calls, etc. So sometimes they even have like a different Facebook pixels, like, so maybe you use those useful extensions, Facebook pixel helper, Google tag assistance. I'm also utilizing the SEO check extension as well, so which gives me a good flexibility about doing and analyzing old platform and versus the new platform. Verify that your Magento 2 is running in the production mode. So I find out sometimes when we're like stepping into the clients, he's complaining about the performance of the site, and then we just release that, hey, website for not in the production mode. So sometimes developer, they just forget to switch it, or maybe the system cannot be switched because of some conflict. So please, if you're a developer, definitely keep it in production. But if someone as a business owner watching this video, please ask your dev guys and make sure that they really switch it to production. And for sure, don't use Magento default bundling. I don't know about opinion from Miguel, but I think like we're not really doing that. And please don't turn on catalog flat and rules on the Magento 2. I mean, that's no longer recommended. what's the specific issues that I know in Magento 2 that needs to be fixed? Eventually, I can tell you we have a Trello board with a checklist what needs to be done on Magento 2, right? So I can tell you by default on Magento 2, canonical snippets, canonical tag would not be properly used. By default, the H1 tag would not be properly used. What else? Canonical, you see, like warning, not define it. Also, I find out a lot of times that if you're not protecting with the capture or maybe even utilizing like a default capture, a lot of bots come into newsletter feeds, and that's obviously kind of the problem for Magento 2 users. And thanks God, Nexcess seems like fixing this issue by itself. Flat category data and flat product data I just mentioned. So basically run this task against the Magento 2 projects and make sure that you also task, like I can tell you, when we're launching the website, we're usually getting access to the Google Search Console because Google doing a good job, raising what's not right with your existing website and what can be done better. So I'm utilizing I'm always also checking when I'm checking the websites, I'm always checking the product snippets. So eventually this is a great tool, right? So you can just go ahead and take one of the product URLs and scan there. So please, if you're running like a migration, please make sure that your developers actually implemented this correctly, so there would not be any errors, etc., etc. So this is really important. Like make sure that URL will be in timely way responded to the Google, because otherwise that might be trouble with the Google indexing. Another stuff that we usually recommend to our clients, and again, it's a free stuff, so we usually recommend them to go with the businesstrustpilot.com/plans. There is a free plan that you can utilize as a business owner and start collecting your merchant reviews. The reason why those merchant reviews are so important, because with the special tags, you can eventually push those ratings into your Google snippets. See how it goes here, like amazing, very nice title, ratings, how many ratings, what the price, etc., etc. So those type of snippets on the new website will stand out from the competitors. And then once you reach out to the first page of Google, then that will be improving your click-through rates, etc. So there's a bunch of the other ones besides Trustpilot, Yotpo, Reviews.io, and Shopper Approved. But again, like I'm usually trying to suggest like a free stuff. A couple of extensions that I would normally install with any Magento 2 projects, which is kind of a little bit about the performance and tracking. So in Magento 2, for instance, there is no way to reindex from Magento admin. Differently, like we usually utilizing update by schedule, but at the same time, sometimes you really need, as a business owner, you need to run for index. So this is one of the extensions that we usually install for any M2 users. And also another extensions from Kiwi Commerce. Let me a little bit give some advertisement for them for the cool job. So we're using like Kiwi Commerce extension that eventually keep tracking of all of the extensions, all of the cron jobs. That's a really useful stuff. So I know most of the developers will know about this. It's just, for the business owners who is here. So you can see which, cron jobs running successfully, which one is not. And then you can kind of raise the ticket with, with your dev guys then. So now imagine you fixed your M1, you prepared your Magento 2, you migrated data, installed all the extension, everything working correctly, you want to launch it, right? I can tell you one of the important things for me, for instance, is here in Google Analytics, make sure that you run like create new message like, hey guys, I'm launching Magento 2, ho ho, and then basically that gives you then in the future like a good point when you eventually started with live, and then you want to make sure that then you can eventually compare the data and see if the migration was successful or not. And definitely, if you will be migrating with any other platform, Magento 2, probably your URL, the sitemap will be different. So you'll have to go with your Google Search Console and upload the new one. A couple things about sitemap. if your website contain like a big inventory, like 5,000, 10,000 SKUs, etc., my recommendation is split those SKUs into the sub sitemaps. That helps Google with the indexing, because like, let me show you. Like for instance, this one, we have 26,000 of items here and only 300 excluded by Google. Everything else is valid and indexed. What might happen the other day, if it's all in one single file, it still might be a challenge to index all of those contents. So for instance, 17,000 URLs in general and almost half excluded. So, I mean, I don't want to, it could be different webinar topics how to fix that, but I mean, as a takeaway, please keep looking into your Google Search Console, keep searching for the issues, you know, clicking here, see what's going on, and make sure you are fixing this like month after month. So this is kind of a quick level overview about the slides. I want to make sure this will be available. As part of this webinar, thank you guys for joining. I will be also sending out these coupon codes that you can utilize. I mean, please, guys, don't make it public, because I have an agreement with all of those vendors that it will, you know, would not go anywhere else. But for our, you know, clients, for our attendees, if you are utilizing any of those companies with extension, you will be able to utilize my coupon code. And yeah, so that's about it from my end. I think it's about like 30-40 minutes. Maybe we'll have some questions, and that we'll be happy to answer. I don't know, like probably we'll just go ahead and start answering the questions. I know there was. Can you join maybe like the voice conversation, Miguel?
Hey, I'm here.
Yeah.
So I didn't see any questions here. Just
okay. What's the okay? So I see that for everyone, what's the monthly cost for being safe with Magento 1.9? It's 35% of your current plan with Nexcess. So I can, like, for all of the attendees, I can tell you, usually I'm doing introductions to from my, you know, customers. I'm doing introductions with Nexcess, and then depends on your existing traffic and the inventory and your expectation in the future, the Nexcess will provide you a kind of cost-saving approach. From what I understand from cloud system, you can also kind of grow, like pay as you grow, and then that might be a good stuff. So, and again, privately here, for all of the attendees, I can tell you that Nexcess also giving, first of all, they also offering like a free migration. That's number one, which is nice to have. I could be a good salesperson in Nexcess maybe. And then they also giving like for some migrations, they're giving for like 75% off from the kind of first months. So that's might be good stuff.
Yep. I'll take the next two questions. It seems to be for me. If I don't have a plan, what would it be? Basically, we are all only offering Safe Harbor for Nexcess users at this point. So basically, you will have to migrate your store here. The next question is, so basically, we will have approximately 2 more years or less in Magento 1. Yes, that's correct. At this point, we are launching this for 18 months. But we might renew that for 24 months. But I don't expect that to happen. I don't want more people to stay Magento 1. So yeah, it's going to be between 18 and 24 months. Yeah. The next question is, when Adobe stops issuing patches, will Nexcess develop patches for future known threats? If yes, how will this be determined? So far, what we have is an agreement with 2 different vendors and also with OpenMesh. What we are going to be doing is basically patching things as fast as we can once they are public, but we will also be working on proactively creating these patches and sourcing them. This is going to be a pain point for everybody and even for us, if you ask me. So while we have an idea on what to do, this is going to change over time, mostly because we don't know how and what are we going to be finding. We have a team working on this right now. We have a team working on automatically patching all the Magento 1 stores, but that's going to take us some time. And I don't expect that to be ready before June, or well, before Magento 1 end of life is. So basically, yes, we are going to be sourcing these patches, and we will determine how severe the issues are given our experience, basically. So I don't know if that answers to your question, but yeah, basically we are going to be the one deciding what's important and what's not. In the same way we've done this for over 10 years now. Again, keep in mind, we are not starting to support these old sites now. We've been doing this forever, basically. Like, as long as you can remember, Nexcess was here, and we basically supported every Magento 1 store worldwide at some point. Rafi asked, what if Nexcess has different plans? How do we know which one to pick? That's gonna be up to your traffic, up to your bandwidth, up to your requirements. Once we are done here, you will have an email coming from us, and you can ping me on Twitter, or you can send me an email, and I'm gonna put you in touch with the sales team, basically, so we can scope your site and see which plan is the best one for you. We have plans for everybody, so that's not gonna be a problem. Our plan starts at $19.99, if I recall correctly, and goes up to like $1,000 a month. So it really depends on your needs and on your traffic. Paul, you want to take the next one?
I mean, like you're doing a good job here, so I can for sure.
Yeah,
So,
I'll take it. Yeah, that's fine. So the next question is from Rafi. Does having all your code built on Magento 1 makes it easier for developers to migrate to Magento 2? That's a really tricky question. Like, it's really tricky. I know there are some similarities between Magento 1 and 2, but it's not the same. It's like even the underlying system is different. So it might help having experience with Magento 2. You can port some of the code, but not all of it. So it helps, but it's not like the most helpful thing to do. Like, it's gonna be way easier to migrate. We're not talking about the migration here. We're talking about a complete re-platform, which means you're gonna be using a completely different site. There are ways to transfer the data and like the information you have in your store, but most of the customizations, most of the integrations and the modules you have, they will require a lot of work. They will require probably work from scratch, and that's gonna take you some time and some resources. So it helps having Magento 1 experience, but it's not the most helpful thing. Paul, Armida is asking, I've got some questions. How different is Magento 2 database structure versus Magento 1 structure? They are completely different. There is nothing to compare. Like, there are tables that are similar, but there are, if you have custom attributes when it comes to like customers, addresses, or even in your checkout, that's gonna need a complete migration. And I think this question is mostly to try to understand the scope of the migration. So for all the practical purposes, this is gonna cost you. This is not like you can just move away your attributes and migrate your entities as they are. I think most of the data migrations are really basic, and you have to create all the attributes you had in your own store from scratch. Oh, and I made a mistake. I said our plan started at $19.99. They start at $49.99. Sorry about that.
I can add like answer the last question about the migration with the structure. With shopping cart migration, they actually have an option to migrate your attributes and attribute sets, and they also have onboarding service as well. So if you want to onboard stuff, you can ask them. They will do migration for you. They have two things. They have in this case, migration of the data performance was like a two ways. Number one, like a big migration, and then once you go live, there is a delta migration that will happen as well. So probably when the DNS will be changed, etc., etc. So they can really take care of all this. So, but again, it's also depends on the complexity of your website. So if you want, just shoot us a message and we'll be able to look it for you. Like I can also tell you guys, I mean, like I know that a lot of you might have like Magento 1 completely customized, etc., etc. So like my quick answer about what will happen in July, I mean, even if you will be staying as is, like nothing major will happen, right? It would not, the code will still working, and you would not be in the trouble. It would not disappear. The site will still be there, right? So it just, you have to then, in this case, put a little bit more efforts to try to protect it, on your own. Or maybe there is also a community of the M1 developers who is protecting, and a lot of extension vendors also, they committed to released security updates for the extension. So I mean, I'm always on this. I'm always checking Twitter. I'm always checking what's going on, and so hope in end of the day we have no idea. Maybe even Magento will again extend because of the this coronavirus stuff. Maybe we will extend it. We'll see. You know.
Raf is asking if having the same developers who built your site originally will help. I think yes. I think as long as they have Magento 2 experience, it shouldn't be impossible for them. It's gonna. I think that's actually a good idea because they actually understand your requirements and how much customize your stories. So yeah, probably the answer is yes. Having the same developers who build your site originally will help, in my opinion. Yes.
Good.
Any more questions?
No, it seems like all good. So guys, like we're about like 45 minutes now. If there will be no other questions, then probably that was we'll be finishing this session. I wanna once again thank you for entire team from Nexcess. There was about like 5 person who was working on this webinar. Personally, thanks Miguel. Thank you for you, and yeah. So guys, stay safe those days, and safe with Magento 1, safe with coronavirus, and hopefully to see you guys on our next meetings and webinars.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody, for your time. And yeah, we'll see you around. You know where to find us. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.